I think one of the questions is really in response to saying, wow, things are pretty horrible here in Canada. And I think part of me really wonders, are they really that different around the world? And in ways, I would love to say that I sat here shocked at Wendy's story, but I think that's a really common story everywhere where genetic testing is available. And whether or not, like I think, Sam, you talked about kind of the explicit and the covert. And I think when we look back on the eugenics movement, it seems like it was a really explicit thing. And I think that it seemed very clear at the time that's the intent and what was going on. And now we've kind of hidden our stripes a little bit and have gone a lot more underground in terms of what we're trying to accomplish with the genetic testing and all, I mean, all the language that goes around with the testing. It's screening, it's trying to find who's at risk. Like it clearly sets out that its entire purpose is to identify that which is undesirable, and it sets into motion a number of steps that fall from that very starting point. And so I think that there are some real challenges that we need to look at, that this isn't an individual story. This isn't, I don't think this is an individual story in one in particular country. I think that there is a much bigger systemic issue that's going on here. But the challenge, I think, with having it go so underground and having it be, around information and people having choice, but that choice gets manipulated, and we end up having situations where we don't have a forum for people to really come together and have this discussion. When we know that, upwards of 95% of people are terminating pregnancies on the basis of Down syndrome, on the basis of trisomy 21. We know it's something like 99% in cases of hydroencephalitis. Like there's some pretty shocking statistics, and it can't be without reason. Like there is clearly some direction that is guiding that, but we don't have a framework that's allowing a questioning of that. We've got a publicly funded system that has no public accountability, because in ways I think we're scared to have that discussion. We don't want to be seen as, anti-abortion. My personal opinion, I am okay with being pro-choice, but the issue is looking at how do we ensure that people actually have choice that's a true choice, that they're not being manipulated into making a choice, that they're not, starting from a point where people are so devalued that they can't see that would actually be an option in their life. So the selective abortion issue for me is actually, it gets into that bigger issue of where the discussion is starting from and how people can actually be making those choices. And just really like trying to figure out how we can take away this isolation when we know we've got, doctors who are saying, I've never had anyone in my practice carry to term a pregnancy where a disability has been detected. So that there's a story, there's a dialogue that needs to be happening there, and we don't have that public accountability, we don't have that public platform to really question that. What is going on? And we hear the experience of families in hospitals and families day to day living lives where they're actively being devalued. We can't be shocked that this devaluation is happening prenatally, and that there really are seek and destroy missions that are going on, and we need to find that public space to really open up that discussion and have that more broadly within our medical system, within our communities, and not just amongst the disability community, but really trying to pull that as broadly as possible, because I think that we allow people to feel like it's their one story, it's their one experience. Your experience with your daughter at the hospital, we hear from families all the time that they're having that, and when we say to them, we've just heard a similar story, they're shocked. They think, oh my God, this is happening in other places. They feel isolated, they don't feel they can talk to anyone about this, and it just continues to be kept under the surface, under wraps, and this sort of hidden eugenic culture that no one is pulling out into the public to question. And we say that it's about individual choice, and it's about individuals doing personal, private decisions, but those private, personal decisions have like massive public consequences, and we have to find a way of not stripping people's rights, not stripping people's autonomy, but still being able to find out what is going on. And in Canada, we don't collect that data. You can walk in and have an abortion. You don't have to say why you're having an abortion. And I think we do need to be looking at what are the mechanisms that we have in place that are not stripping people's rights or violating people's rights, but still letting us have a broader dialogue to get at what is driving this, what values are here, and how, you know, really to pull it out and say, are we basically hiding a new eugenic movement? Because I think that increasingly, as parents come forward, as people talk about it more, we find out that this is happening every day in every city around the world.